Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Crack a Can. If you have a short memory, I am Andrew. I'm one of the other hosts along with Ross and Kristen. Tonight we're speaking to somebody very special. Homegrown aspiring artist has just released her debut novel titled An Heir Comes To Rise. The one, the only, Chloe Penaranda. Thank you very much for joining us, Chloe.
Glad to be here.
How are we? How are you keeping?
Yeah, doing well. Just locked down like everybody else in the country, but
isn't that just it? So obviously we'll get into the book. Everything you've it must have been a really exciting past couple of weeks for you. But we'll get the important stuff out of the way first. So we're on Crack a Can. What's your weapon of choice tonight?
I'm not much of a drinker, to be honest. So I've got a Red Bull with me.
Oh, you know what? That's quite all right. We do have that. We do have people on who don't drink, so it's always a kind of question, what they're going to have, but it's fine. Last week we interviewed a guy called Kieran who brought on 2 bottles, and I think the idea of the show kind of missed them, but we still love them. No, that's perfectly all right then. So just to kind of delve into, An Heir Comes To Rise. So it's your debut novel. Tells the tale of an orphan called Faith who lives in this mythical, magical kingdom called, I hope I'm saying this right, Ungardia?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, good. I'm so glad. So glad I got that right from the start. Well, why don't you let us, discuss, when somebody's just picking up this book, just looking at the cover, just looking at it, what would you expect potential readers, from the get-go? What's in store for them?
The worst part, authors, they can write, 110k novels, and then when you get asked to summarize their book, that's kind of out the window. But it is a young adult fantasy novel to begin with. So book 1, book 2 is very young adult kind of targeted audience. But I've got readers, that are older than the sort of typical young adult age range that do enjoy these kind of books. Like myself, I'm 24, but I would read young adult fantasy. It's one of my favorite genres. But yeah, the summary is kind of how you said it. It's about this girl called Faith, and she kind of discovers that she's got these abilities that no human should have. So it's in a world to do with sort of humans and fae are the 2 main species in there, and it is a high fantasy novel, so it's not in this world, it's in Ungardia. It's a different world altogether. So yeah, it's kind of how it is summed up.
Yeah, so if you were to, again, that's the kind of stuff that, well, admittedly, I'm more of an audiobook kind of guy, but when I'm reading, so to speak, fantasy is one of my interests as well. Like when it comes to comparisons, I know you can really ask somebody to compare their book, but if you were to say, people who like the likes of, what I'm getting is maybe like Artemis Fowl, Game of Thrones, that kind of world, or maybe something a wee bit different.
It's not as like dark as, it does get darker as the series goes on, but initially it's not as dark as like Game of Thrones. It's not as gory, not as sexual.
Yeah.
It's more, when I was writing these books, it's more within the audience. I don't know if you've heard of the author Sarah J. Maas. She has this big series, Throne of Glass is what it's called. It's a big hit series, so anybody who kind of likes those books is kind of my target audience that would like kind of books. But yeah, kind of fantasy, as in it's not quite Lord of the Rings kind of style, but definitely high fantasy, different world kind of stuff.
Good stuff. All right. Okay. Yeah, I've got you. So, just talking about that, the expansive world of that. I know that the original idea is that you want to have this across 5 books, is it?
I'm thinking 5. I've got plans for maybe a 6th, but following a different character. So, but at least 5 books.
Yeah. So when you said there, just I kind of picked up and you said the first and second book, kind of the same, and then when it goes on from that, it grows a wee bit. So is that that's just the evolution of Faith in this case, just how she goes from book 1 to book 5?
Yeah, book 1 is following Faith. It's mostly to do with her, but a lot more characters and a lot more like other species get introduced. So it does go down a slightly darker path, and there's more sort of mature themes, sort of book 3 onwards, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Still within the young adult genre, but it does get a bit darker, and there's darker characters and
Yeah.
things like that.
So have you, so I mean, to have an interest in this, is that something you've always, you've always been into your fantasy, your kind of folklore? Is that where you draw it from? Have you always been a fan of that genre, so to
Yeah,
speak?
absolutely. I mean, from young teens, I always liked fantasy. It was more kind of werewolves and vampires and things back
Yeah.
then. But yeah, I've always read. Always been an avid reader. I did used to write very bad, very bad writing when I was younger. Used to publish them on like these free websites like Wattpad and things. But yeah, it wasn't quite. I only got into sort of Fae as the other species that isn't human. When I picked up Sarah J. Maas's books,
Yeah.
when I started getting into those, and there's a big interest in that kind of book right now. So, and it's what I love, so I can just roll with that.
See the front cover, and this was a wee nugget of information that actually came from your brother, but that was you came up with the concept from that, and then was it a designer you gave it to just to like kind of finally bring it to life?
Yeah, so I mean, I knew exactly how I wanted the book to look.
Yeah.
I'm quite particular, which was why self-publishing was kind of a good step for me, because I like to have control. But yeah, I had it sort of mapped out. The illustration and the design is two different people. So my cover artist, Alice Maria Power, she's amazing. I gave her, my concept, and she took it and she gave me sketches, and then we went from there, and it came out so much better than I could have imagined.
Good.
The cover designer, I knew where I wanted the words, I knew where I wanted everything, but she put that all together for me.
Oh, good stuff. I know exactly how it is. Like especially when you do it at college as well, you have your own image in your head. And was there part of you? Because I know, admittedly, I'd kind of be the same. Was there part of you that, because you've done everything yourself up to this point, was there, a wee voice in your head saying, "Oh, just do this yourself," because it was yours? Was there somewhat of a difficulty to hand that to somebody else to finish it off, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I knew I couldn't do the illustration myself. I mean, I have done digital art before, and I'm not bad, but I couldn't have made it to Alice's standards. So I was definitely going to pay for that. The actual design, which is the wording, all the words that are on it, and there was a part of me that did want to do that part myself, but then doing all my research and that, just everybody was saying it's just better to have an outside kind of guy to put that together. So I did, but it came out exactly how I had mapped it out. Like I'd put it together myself anyway. Basically just hired someone to put it in there.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like the final result looks fantastic. Like
it does,
it is definitely the best result. Do you think you would have felt any differently had you have done it through an outside publishing company?
So I mean, I did a lot of research before deciding to self-publish, because obviously it's a much bigger financial commitment and financial loss if it doesn't go well. But traditional publishing, I think there was two main reasons I didn't go down that route or even try to go down that route, and one was time and control, basically. So to get a traditional publishing deal, I mean, you've got to first get an agent. It can take years before anybody even decides to take a chance, and then even if you did get a publishing house deal, they can hold on to your script for another couple of years after that, and I just didn't want to wait that long to get the book out. Was probably the main point that I didn't do that way.
Would you have said that COVID, the whole situation, everything, lockdown, did that give you the opportunity to actually sit down and do all this research to do that, or were you doing it pre-world lockdown?
No, for sure. I think the first ever lockdown really gave me, you're sitting in the house, you're vegetabling, essentially, and I've written books before, and I've gotten to a certain point and sort of stopped, years ago. But when the first lockdown happened, I sat down and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I swear to God, it was like waking up writing, going to
Yeah.
bed. Like, it was all I was doing. I was like forgetting to feed myself, and I just got this first book done, so that was like out, and it was kind of an achievement. It was kind of like the most I'd ever written before.
Yeah, it's
so
not a small thing.
Yeah, that's kind of when I thought I feel like I've got something here. Like if I feel this passionately about it, that I wanted to see it to the finish line basically and get it out there. Now that it was done.
As the saying goes, you draw, or writers like draw from personal experience. Would you say there's any part of this book that has like something from your life in it, any themes, or is it just like purely you've created this expansive mythological world, like just?
I mean, in terms of like things and actual events that happened, I'd say most of them are made out, but I'd say Faith and some of the other characters, some of the darker characters, a lot of the parts of me are in those characters. There's so many things I can relate to in each character, and I mean that was kind of the goal, was to have the characters pretty relatable to other people as well. So some of the dark things, some of the happier things. I'd say the characters have a lot of me in them more than actual events that happen in the world. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've had a few comments of people saying, yeah, I really aspire to be how brave Faith is, and she really makes me want to be, she's quite a strong character. She's she really stands up for herself and for her friends and her family. So yeah, I have had a few comments, and it's been absolutely it just makes everything worth it when people say, yeah, well, I aspire to be kind of like that, and I felt connected to that character is one of the best.
Exactly. So in terms of, so you're saying you get these 5 books, maybe a 6th that will lead into a new character. I always like to ask, what's the big dream? What's the thing that movie, TV series, like what's the, in 20 years, what would you want to say from now?
I mean, yeah, I've had a few people, comment, oh, it'll be the TV, it'll be the movies next. But I mean, the chances of that happening are so slim. But I mean, I guess I wouldn't mind. But then part of me is like, I've seen so many TV adaptations that just don't that totally kill the book. So there's always a wary side that way. But I think for me, it would just be to just grow an audience. Or get to the scale of the likes of, Sarah J. Maas and folk like that, and just have readers and a franchise. I would love to see it, get a franchise. I have so much planned for this kind of world that I can see, things getting made for it, and not necessarily, TV and anything that crazy, but just like merchandise and just having a readership and, people that it's like, you get a place to go.
What would you say to someone who was in your position before you started, not so much before you started writing this, but before you started actually making your moves, like starting the publishing house? Like, if someone was watching this video right now and they're sitting there thinking, I've got a book idea, what's the Chloe Penaranda take on it? What would you say is the next step?
Oh man,
just to put you in the spot there, of course.
I'd say that growth is small. I mean, I started off on Instagram with no followers, and there was just constant times where I was like, building followers is so hard, and it's so easy to put yourself down and just thinking, well, no one's going to like the book if no one's following me, and no one's going to like the book if they're not liking your posts. And I think social media is great, but it's also very unhealthy as well. So definitely taking a step back from social media, and it'll grow as you grow as well. And I don't have much more advice than that. Other than, I think that was the biggest sort of demon for me, was overcoming the fear of not being well received, and the growth and the finding, it's about, and I keep forgetting that this book's only been out for 3 weeks now.
No, 3 weeks, aye.
25th of February it came out. It's only been a few weeks, whereas on Instagram I've got these author friends that have had books out for like a year, 2 years, and even a couple of months that just seem to be doing better, and then I keep forgetting that I'm still a little baby. Like be patient, basically. I mean, I have pretty good short-term patience, but not very good long-term patience. So I'm like trying to
yeah.
you know, pedal a bike so much faster than it can go. But just patience. I think patience and drive is what it's going to take.
What so far has been your highest high? What's been the biggest positive you've had to date, with, you know, from writing the first words and up until now?
It's hard to say. I think, I mean, just seeing it come to print was just a big, I mean, even when I had, you know, dozens of copies sitting there staring at me, it's quite surreal to see it all come to print, going from your computer, going through so many stages. You know, it took just over a year, I think, to get it all come together, you know, through the editor and the cover artist and things like that.
Yeah.
It took about a year, where you can't complain with that, because with traditional publishing, maybe we waiting like 4 to 5 years. So I think it was just holding that kind of first copy and just feeling you made it. It's not out in the world yet, but you've written a book.
You've got it.
Yeah, you know, there's plenty of authors out there, and it is a big pool to try and, you know, stand out in. But a lot of people do say very few people actually make it to writing a full book. So it was hard to accept that was an achievement, because I was like, you know, I wrote it all, and that was it all came together. And you had the full manuscript there, but a lot of people don't make it that far. So that was a good achievement.
Obviously, so the book is out. It's been out came out on the 25th of February. It's available on, and correct me if I'm wrong here, so Amazon, Waterstones, Barnes and Noble, and it's on Kindle. So if you have Kindle account, you can read it for free. Is that correct?
If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. Otherwise, it's still, and you can still get it on Kindle, but it's a paid ebook.
Yeah. Oh, got you, good stuff. So basically, any of your main book, I was about to say manufacturers there, any of your book retailers, you can get it on.
Yeah.
So what have we got to look forward to? What's the next plan here? So from now, I know you were saying you wanted the second book ideally out by August time. So is that what you're looking at?
That's what I'm looking at, and then subsequently, hopefully, every 4 to 6 months, trying to get a book out. It is really financial dependent mostly at the time. It's not that I can't write. I mean, book 3 is at least halfway, if not 3/4 of the way done. So yeah, all things going well, hopefully have the series out every 4 to 6 months, hopefully.
Good stuff. And we'll round it off then. Like, so if you picture yourself in the position in the next 5 years, you know, you're the next, you know, next Lord of the Rings. Like, what would Chloe just now say to Chloe then if she's looking back on it?
Just to stop doubting yourself so much and to not give up. I mean, there've been so many times where I've been thinking that I'm doing the wrong thing here, and maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. But yeah, just don't compare yourself. Don't doubt yourself as much, and have a bit more faith.
Yeah, and I think that's the best advice you can give to anything, not even authors. I think just in life, best way to be. That's a really good point to actually end on. It's a nice, positive note. Yeah. So again, we will link everything in the comments. Chloe's book, like we just discussed there, most online retailers. We have been speaking to Chloe Penaranda, the amazing author of Heir Comes To Rise. Yeah, go check it out. We'll provide all the links. Even if you've not checked it out yet, go and check it out. Give the page a look. Instagram. So you're on what? Instagram, Facebook. You tried TikTok.
I do have a Twitter. It's not quite active, but mainly Instagram and Facebook. But yeah. So Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Maybe it'll happen. We don't know yet. But yeah, we'll go give Chloe a follow. We're really excited to see how the next year, 2 years, 5 years turns out for you. And we were supporting you. But yeah, no, thank you so much for speaking to us. And we'll wish you all the best. We'll plug this as much as we can, and nothing but success for the future, we feel. Thanks. Well, thanks for having me.